We're going to talk for a moment about leading from a distance and working with remote teams. Not a totally new concept, but 2020 certainly forced a lot more of us to try to figure out how do we keep a group of people working toward a common mission together, even while we have to be apart. And if you're someone who's had to make that transition from being physically present with others to keeping your distance, you probably come at this conversation very aware of a number of things that you've lost. There are some deficits of distance, things that seem missing. Just very practically, when you don't have laughter in the hallways, banter before and after meetings, talking about weekend plans in the break room, things that build rapport, or quick and easy information exchanges just by poking your head out the door. The ability to read the room because you're in the room and you can sense how people are feeling. The impromptu circle ups that just cut to the point and enable decisions to be made. Environments for collaboration and whiteboarding and dreaming, and safe spaces to speak freely without fear of being misunderstood, and all the uninhibited dialogue and listening that can occur when you're in the same space tackling something together. The ease of just walking down the hall and asking a clarifying question. The ability to look someone in the eye, gauge their body posture and the vibe that they're putting off, and if you need to, just say, hey, talk to me about what's going on. What's on your mind? Distance creates some deficits that as leaders, we have to help our teams overcome. Because of that, I think we could also point out some dangers of distance, some threats that we must be aware of and avoid. Let's ruminate on just a few. You've heard it said that absence makes the heart grow fonder. Maybe true in some relationships, but I think something like the opposite is true when you're distant from those you work with. Without careful effort to overcome it, distance can make the heart grow colder. Colder in terms of relationships with people on the team and buy-in to the mission. Now, that's not to say that being in physical proximity with one another automatically produces strong rapport and trust and unity and all that, but distance does create greater challenges. And some of the positive team aspects that are strengthened by being together can atrophy when we're apart. With some of those dynamics missing, you can see how distance could create conditions where animosity could grow more easily and fester privately, where benefit of the doubt would decrease, where trust would wane and suspicion rise, where misunderstandings would be more prevalent because we have a difficult time communicating, where I might feel left out or that I'm missing out on something, where seeds of disunity could grow, where I might lose the sense of I love coming into work every day because I'm not coming into work every day. I'm not in the environment. I'm not experiencing the culture and the atmosphere in the same way. A leader's got to be aware of these realities, have an antenna up, and actively work to overcome the distance. Another danger is vision leak. Now, vision leaks all the time, and a constant task of the leader is to cast and recast vision. But distance only accentuates the need for frequent vision drips. Like if I'm with people every day and I'm in the environment, I have the chance to see tangible reminders of why we're doing what we're doing all the time. It's not guaranteed, but I've got a better chance of staying oriented to the vision. When I'm at a distance, I'll need more assurances, more reminders, more effort is going to be required from my leader to connect the stuff I'm doing from my computer screen in my room to the accomplishment of our vision. There are other dangers, I'm sure, but I'll stop with one more. And that is that we would stop collaborating. We've seen this play out a little bit at Mountain amongst our staff. Collaboration, a team-oriented approach, those are high values in the way that we work together. But let's be honest, if you're not used to working across distance, collaboration is just harder if you can't be in the same room. Discussions are more difficult. Even with good technology, it's just not quite the same. People are often likely to contribute less to virtual meetings than they would if they were in person. I'll just hold back that idea because it's harder to read the room and I don't want it to be taken the wrong way. And Zoom minutes are like dog years and we wear out more quickly. So it's more challenging to sustain the energy needed for collaborative problem solving. Now, I've been on so many Zoom meetings during the shutdown caused by the coronavirus, and I feel like I could have one of those with anyone at any time, and it's super convenient. We've gotten a lot done that way. But I can't tell you how many times I've also had the thought barking in my head, let's just get in the same room together and figure it out. It's just the environment that I prefer for collaboration, and many of us are used to that. So without the ability to do that, I and other leaders on our team have noticed places where we're not collaborating as much as we once did and feeling instead like we're just deciding things and passing it on. Now, wartime decision-making is inherent to leading through a crisis in a little bit, but we've got to work harder while we're apart to reap the benefits that come from collaboration. There are other things that we can articulate, and you can start thinking more about the ways that distance has posed a threat for your team or your group so you can have a sense of what your leadership requires. But none of this is to say that working at a distance from each other is bad or wrong or impossible. It just comes with a unique set of challenges that many of us have never had to reckon with before. And at the same time, it also comes with opportunities. So let's make a turn and not just talk about the deficits and the dangers, but the desirables of distance. What opportunities must we recognize and seize? Start with some simple, more personal ones, like you never have to put pants on again. You can start a meeting even without brushing your teeth first. No, seriously, I have enjoyed the relaxed dress code of working from home, but I've really been glad for the opportunity to eat lunch at home with my family. I rarely ever came home for lunch before, and now I get to take a nice break in the middle of the day. When your physical location doesn't matter, you can prioritize other things that matter. You can be outside on the back porch. You can do a meeting on the phone while you go for a walk. Go visit the grandkids, work from their house, or from the beach, the mountains, wherever you can get reception. The freedom of not being tied to a physical location can be a real blessing. When leading from a distance, there can be more of an anytime nature to your work. Now, that could be a negative if you don't have boundaries, because if work can be done anytime, then you might be doing it all the time. But if you can draw boundaries, you can be free to wake up early, knock out some things before the family is awake, or keep afternoons free and go play with your kids or take a break and then pick up work after the kids are in bed, if you're more of a night owl. The schedule opens up a lot when you have meetings that don't require you to leave the house. We got small groups meeting later via Zoom because kids are in bed. Meetings at 8:30 or even 9 p.m. don't seem so late. If you could have everything buttoned up at home, do the meeting in your pajamas if you want to. Also, Carrie Nieuwhof mentions this in an article I'll link you to. Working from a distance allows you to work more in sync with your body clock. So maybe sometimes you get tired in the middle of the day. Now, sure, there are occasions when you just got to power through. On the other hand, if you know that you're just going to get diminishing returns from forcing yourself to work while your mind is fried and your energy is depleted, why not just cooperate with your body and take a nap? I did that yesterday, and then I finished up some work later last night. I worked for a farmer when I was a teenager. We'd work in the morning, go eat lunch, take a siesta before going back out. Not a bad rhythm. You can do that if you're a farmer or if you're leading from a distance. There are some freedoms to be exploited. Okay, that was all personal, like life management type stuff. Let's name some desirable team benefits. While a virtual meeting, it might inhibit collaboration in some of the ways, like we said, we at Mountain, we've also learned some things that where we've seen some participation increase in certain cases. For example, we do an all-staff meeting, and let's say we made a reference to an event and it was led by our students team, for example. Now, in a regular meeting, whoever's speaking, we'd acknowledge good work and we'd celebrate the thing, but you wouldn't hear individuals speaking words of encouragement out loud in the meeting. But in a virtual meeting with the chat feature, when we do something like that, we'll see tons of people express encouragement right there in the moment. They're typing something in the chat. And it's a really good vibe, and it is encouraging. It's different from a round of applause. It's more personal in a lot of ways. And it creates ways for meaningful engagement from more members of the team in a large team meeting that we hadn't really even seen before. So there are some tools available in virtual meetings to actually increase participation and draw a team together. There have been some classes and groups that we've offered that have actually seen increased participation and more consistent attendance because of the fact that they could be done virtually. It made it more accessible. It had a wider appeal because it was done well, and the effort was made to bridge the distance in an effective way. You can involve more people in the thing that you're leading when distance isn't a barrier. We've seen the distance actually create more touches between people. Now, not physical touch, we all know COVID changed that, but because of the ease of video calls and everyone being more familiar with them, we've had staff leaders on our team be able to be more in touch with their leaders virtually than they were even before when physical meetings were possible. Now, the fact that the world shut down and canceled every other activity for a while probably contributed to making some of those connections, but it's also true that increased familiarity with video conferencing and the convenience that it offers has made it more possible to connect and even visit people without visiting them in person. And businesses, of course, are experiencing this too. What used to cost hundreds of dollars in a whole day or more through plane travel can now be experienced virtually with greater frequency and less cost. Finally, distance forces creativity, adaptability. I think every person, every organization would like to believe that they're creative and flexible and able to navigate change. But it's harder to be those things unless there's some necessity that demands it. For our church, we'd been dreaming for a while. What's the future going to look like as we imagined an increased digital connection being crucial to our ministry? And then with COVID, the future arrived a little earlier than we had planned, and we accelerated to become phygital, blending physical and digital for a full discipleship strategy that, just like all of our lives, flows in and out of physical and digital spaces. We knew we ought to be working on that, and then suddenly we had to be working on that. We had to get it figured out in order to keep our mission moving forward across the distance. So we've become adept with new tools. We're communicating in different ways. Leading from a distance has pushed us to lean toward the new world instead of clinging to the old one. And that's a posture that I think really helps our mission. And that's the ultimate desirable of distance, is that the mission can continue even across distance. As a church, we've never shut down. Engagement continues, praying continues, connecting in groups continues. People are still encountering God's word, still worshiping, still serving others in love, still giving. Distance has not prevented any of that. And I hope that the teams and the groups that you're leading have found ways to adapt as well, because being apart, while painful in a lot of ways, is not the same kind of obstacle that we used to think it was to furthering our mission. A lot of us have had to show that leading from a distance is possible and missional. Let's close by talking about what makes it possible. Some do's and don'ts of distance. First, don't forget the fundamentals. I say to my daughter all the time, who loves to play basketball, look, every time you catch the ball, be in a stance, square up, see the floor. And there are some basics of leadership that don't change. You just have to do. Here are the ones that we talk about. Leadership is essentially getting people from here to there, from where they are to where they're trying to go. Those are the fundamentals of leadership, and they don't change. They still apply when leading from a distance. The here is about defining reality, answering the question, where are we? We've covered some of that in this talk, naming some of the distinct deficits and dangers that are inherent to leading a remote team. A leader who's blind to those realities won't likely lead very well. A leader should clarify the constraints and help the team come to terms with them. Like constraints around COVID, they changed a lot, week to week, day to day sometimes. A leader has to help their team interpret reality. What does this new data mean for us? What do these patterns suggest about what people need or how they're feeling? What's true? Additionally, your team needs to know, where do they stand with regard to the goals that they have? Are we making progress? Are we falling behind? The distance between you may mean that they need to be reminded more frequently, and that you can't take it for granted that everyone knows where we're at, especially in a COVID-type reality where things are changing so fast, and you can't just assume that you'll catch up on a pop-in or a hallway chat or an impromptu circle up and be able to keep people up to speed. The there is about vision, answering the question, where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? We need a clear target and frequent reorientations toward that target. Again, this is always important, and fogginess here is always detrimental. Leaders have to recognize that physical distance only increases the potential fog, because I'm over here in my own little world and everybody's all in their own little world. So every email's got to be framed up with vision language. It's not just tactical exchange of information. Meeting agenda items aren't just for explaining what's happening or how it's happening, but why it's happening. The leader demonstrates how the item being discussed points us toward our target. Make the vision shareable, written down, expressed in pictures, rehearse it often. That's always important, as we said, but even more so when we're far apart. We gotta have clear expectations about what we're trying to accomplish. The two is about strategy, answering the question, how will we get there? And this is probably where everything has changed in light of COVID. Old strategies that depended on physical gathering and human touch have had to be changed. I wouldn't doubt it if you're in a situation where you're feeling like you're reinventing everything you do. Old methods don't work. And that's true when you shift to remote work. You'll need new tools, obviously. Just like you maybe had gone to great lengths to perfect your conference room environment with a large table and comfy chairs, and a big screen and a whiteboard and a coffee maker and whatever else. You got to tend to the environment in a way that suits you for digital, distance communication. Quiet space, good camera, microphone, proper lighting, the right software, those kinds of things. You'll need new communication patterns. Again, Kerry Newhoff, in the same article, he says, default to video meetings. And I would agree. That's what we've done in large part. We can't get together in person, but a video meeting is the next best thing. You can't just rely on email communication to keep a team together. Conference phone calls are better, but they have their limits, and people engage better when we can all see each other. You'll need new meeting rhythms. Generally, for me, it's felt like keeping a team together across distance is better served by shorter, more frequent check-ins. Each of us is going to have to discern how our methods and our strategies need to adapt in order to bridge the distance. But the point is, they will have to adapt. Those are a few fundamental things that we don't want to forget. I'll finish with a few quick do's, one don't, and then I'll share some links to some articles for further reading at the end. So do over communicate. Again, dispel any potential for fog. Don't assume old communication patterns are going to suffice. Do end meetings with clear next steps. Before we all leave this Zoom meeting, review what we discussed so that we don't conclude what maybe is our only chance to see each other this week without knowing for sure who's doing what. Do document things on shareable platforms. Now, we use Google Docs extensively, Google Sheets. We use that all the time. And instead of a whiteboard in a meeting, it allows you to record notes in a shared doc. Everyone can see it and contribute to it, and it populates in real time. Also, a collaboration can be enhanced in that way. You invite people to contribute to a document ahead of a meeting, and then you review it when we're together, and that helps overcome some of the virtual meeting limitations. Do care for people, not just tasks. The distance between us and the crisis of a pandemic have created an extra strain for all of us. Yes, human connection, it's harder via a digital platform, but we've got to use what we have in order to care for those on our team as best we possibly can. Create space in meetings for relational connections. Check up on people with a phone call just because. Send a gift in the mail. Bridge the gap in some kind of intentional way. Do have fun and celebrate victories. Now, we love playing games when our team gets together and come together. So we can't really do silly relays or toss balls or play giant Jenga from a distance, but we've got to find other ways to leverage whatever environment we do have for some fun. So we'll play Zoom games or share fun videos and those kind of things. And telling God stories is still about the best thing that we do. It's a vision thing. It's a unifying thing. It's a testament to how God is at work in our midst, and a reminder for all of us that we're part of something bigger than ourselves, and that our work from wherever we're at is worth it, and it makes a difference. We've got to be able to celebrate. Do draw boundaries. Set your work hours. Define your workspace. Carve out breaks between Zoom meetings. Sure, work anytime, work anywhere, but not all the time and everywhere. And finally, don't handle conflict outside of face-to-face interaction. We can't be together physically, but when we've got some tension to navigate, we've got to do the next best thing and at least be on a video meeting, or find a way to creatively be in person and safely apart. We always say, if it smells funky, engage. And working at a distance, when you're apart from one another, that can only make more of an opportunity for things to start smelling funky. So, if you get the sense that something didn't land right in a meeting, or you're feeling at odds with someone, or you've been offended, or you just don't understand where another person is coming from, then do the important work to get together and deal with it face to face. Whether it's on a screen or off a screen, don't assume that you can fix it by sending an email or a text. All right, so there are a few things to think about how we can all successfully keep a team moving on mission together while staying apart. And there's, of course, a lot of other people who've thought a lot about this and have some great insights to share. I've told you about Kerry Newhoff. He's got an article, 7 Rules for Leading a Digital Team. Also appreciated Darlene DeRosa's 5 Lessons for Successful Virtual Teaming. And for those of you leading a small group from a distance, a couple of articles that might be of interest as well, leading a small group through social distancing, and 9 tips on leading a virtual small group. So, I hope that has been helpful for you. And if your current lot and your current calling has you leading from a distance, then as the Apostle Paul would say, lead with all diligence.